Are you looking for better health but feel a little overwhelmed with it all, thinking there might be something missing? Maybe you're looking for action steps to take that get to the real root of the issue and actually move the needle in your health. Here on the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast, we will share the link between our physical, emotional, and spiritual health, all while pointing you to the one and only true healer, Jesus. I'm Kari, your co-host. As a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner, I spent 20 years in the traditional healthcare world, and it was definitely long enough to know there's a huge need for preventative healthcare and holistic healing. I'm excited to have conversations around these topics with my co-host and friend, Jen.
Hey, I'm Jen Patriarca. God gave me this desire to help others with natural healing a long time ago. With more than 20 years of experience in the functional nutrition field, God decided it was time to join forces. Kari and I are colleagues turned faithful partners in this mission God has put on our hearts. A mission for true healing, one that encompasses an integrative approach. With Jesus taking the lead, our aim is to point you toward Him as we help you peel back the layers. Through conversations, you can expect straightforward information on holistic health topics that include physical, emotional, and spiritual action steps that will create real change in your health, and honest conversations around the ups and downs that can come with healing. It's time to have joy in your life again and the energy to do all that God has called you to. Be sure to subscribe for new episodes every Monday. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. We are so excited. We're continuing our journey on our stories of healing. And today we have one of our own, Kari Cootie.
Yeah.
We're so excited to just talk about what the Lord has done in your life and how He's worked for your healing and for His glory. And we're just so excited to bring to light everything that He's guided you on, because I think it's a really important journey that meshes the spiritual and the physical together really well.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about that too. So I'm excited to kind of hopefully connect some dots maybe for people. It might not be the same issue that you're dealing with. However, I think there's always a connection between the physical, emotional, and spiritual. So hopefully this will kind of help you to see that.
Yeah. So do you just want to let's start with the physical. Why don't you tell everybody kind of what you were struggling with most? Let's start with the physical.
Yeah, sounds good. So today we're going to talk about poop. we're going to talk about the fact that it's so important for you to be able to effectively detox via bowel movements. And it was like, I always knew this, probably, more so now than way back, when I can kind of remember dealing with this issue, which really was college. I remember, kind of dealing with a few issues. My memory's kind of clouded on exactly the whole timeline. However, it's just like I've just always known it was important, and it was always so frustrating when, it didn't happen daily, and even every other day, I would just go 3 and 4 days without a bowel movement, and just, you don't feel good. You feel just blah, right? And so that's kind of been a lot of my healing journey, is trying to, at first kind of trying to chase what was going on, but then realizing, oh, maybe I need to let go. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell.
I hope everybody's seeing the common theme on these healing stories.
Right.
And if you haven't, it's letting go.
Yeah, truly.
Right. Okay. So you were struggling with constipation that had started in college, and did you try some physical things to help with the constipation?
I'm thinking about one particular time when I went to the doctor, and, it's not coming to my mind why I originally went to the doctor. However, he was kind of doing just some physical checkup type things, and he was palpitating my abdomen. And he was like, "My gosh, you're full of poop." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I am." I don't remember the last time I went to the bathroom, actually. And so, of course, he prescribed some Miralax that I didn't take. So I've kind of, and that was when I just gotten finished with pharmacy school, mind you, right? That's the college I'm talking about. So I just remember always wanting to do things a natural way. I really never turned to laxatives much, if any. I probably took Miralax a handful of times over a 20-year span, but I really always wanted to do things a natural way. So if I would turn to anything, it would probably be like a magnesium type of thing that was a
Sure.
little bit more natural. But I mean, I tried on and off things like that, plus a lot of diet changes over the years. That's probably the main thing that I tried to do. And then more recently in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, detoxes. That was kind of what I was, I finally figured out, okay, well, it's not the foods because I've eliminated all these foods and I'm still having this issue. And so then it was kind of the whole detox rabbit hole I went
Okay.
down.
Okay, so detox, like tell me more about what specifics. Like, did you do
Yeah.
full detox program, colon cleanses, liver cleanses, parasite protocol, detoxes? What were you grasping at?
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't say that lately.
Right. I know. A lot of the above, almost all of the above. So I think I did like 3 or 4 GI maps with like full protocols. I mean, like so many pills a day. I did that probably over like a 3 year span. And then I kind of turned to just parasites alone. So I did a few of those, really made myself sick one time. I vividly remember it. It was on Easter and I felt awful. Like I felt like I had the flu. And it was just really bad. And I was like, okay,
I
never
can
doing that
imagine.
again. So yeah, there's definitely been ups and downs for sure. And not that those things didn't help. However, it really never fixed my problem.
Right. It would help just in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and I might, see some relief like for the next couple weeks or month or whatnot, but then it just kind of always seemed to come back.
Okay. So, so you tried a bunch of physical things that semi worked, right? But not really.
Yeah.
So tell me the point where you were like, okay, I've done all the physical things. Maybe it's something else that I'm not thinking about.
Well, after I really made myself sick, I remember it. I was like, I'm just done. I'm just done,
I'm just staying
like
constipated.
right. And so I tried my best. I think I just took magnesium most nights, and I mean, I went probably every other day, every day, kind of fluctuating. So that went on, I don't know, probably for 6 or 8 months. And I really had never, well, I won't say I had never thought about the emotional, but you would always hear, like every now and then I would hear, well, if you're constipated, then it's kind of like a metaphor that you're holding on to something. And I would always be like, that's weird. I don't know what I feel like about that. I'm not sure. It's probably
Not
God
ready. You
like
weren't ready
trying
yet.
to knock me over the head, right? So I had heard, so I'm not saying I had never heard that, but I mean, maybe I just really didn't even believe in it. I'm not sure. However, it wasn't until we met and kind of had our whole journey that it kind of opened my eyes to, wow, there is something to this emotional stuff. Like it really does make a difference.
So what was kind of the turning point? Like what did God show you was the root of it? And how did he show you? What happened?
Yeah, it was when I went to this retreat. We were both there. It was a small retreat, and I remember that I had gone to, several it wasn't a small retreat like that, but it was conferences, and I would just kind of feel a stirring in my soul, but I just really didn't let go fully. Like I would, kind of get stirred up and then I would just go back to my regular life. And it wasn't until this retreat, which was almost a year ago now,
Yeah.
I
September,
really
right?
just was like, I'm so tired. And I mean, at this point, it was definitely not like, oh, this is part of my physical symptoms. This was just like, my heart knew that I had to give this up. It was just really a forgiveness issue that I needed to just give to the Lord with somebody close to me. And so it wasn't until then that kind of was really apparent to me. But then again, I'm very like logical, analytical. So I'm like, okay, like what's the 12-step process to forgive somebody? you know,
Want
um,
the formula.
what's the formula? And so God was like, basically, there is no formula. Like, I'm going to have to do it, I mean, because I had realized this on some level in the past, but just kind of here and there, but it was like, again, super apparent to me that this is very important. It was just like standing in the way, honestly, of like what he was calling me to. And yeah, that again, I didn't put the two and two together, but that's kind of when that emotional side of it started. And then I believe it was just conversations that we had, Jen, of like, these are the emotional connection, emotion and organ connections. And then I felt like he was putting the pieces together, like, okay, well, this goes with this, and then forgiveness is this, and okay, this makes more sense.
So you figured out that obviously the organs that are related that help you poop, basically liver and gallbladder, were directly related with forgiveness.
Right.
Wow.
And I mean, it was like mind blown. I mean,
right.
There's just no other way to describe it. It's like, how did I not know this?
Right.
But it just wasn't time.
Right.
And so I don't look back and think, wow, I wish I wouldn't have struggled with that. Now, in the moments, of course, over that year, 5 or 6 year span that I was just trying all of these things. And it's just like, I feel like everybody has that one thing that you're like, if this was gone, my life would be so much easier and so much better. Right. And that was mine. It's just so frustrating. And then again,
the constipation. You're talking about the constipation.
Yes, I'm talking about the constipation. Yes. And two, it's like, okay, people are coming to me to help them with their physical things. And like, I still have this issue. There's some of that going on too. Like, why can't I just fix this? But God was like,
which is the enemy.
Which is the enemy. But then again, God had to get me to the point of like, you can't fix it.
Right.
You tried everything under the sun and you can't fix it.
Right.
So
God, okay. So God was really showing you that the root was forgiveness for the constipation.
Yeah.
And God had to, of course, work on your heart to do the forgiveness, because of course you couldn't do it. He had to do it.
Yeah. And there was so much that led up to that too, of me letting go of so many other things. Like, I know we're, kind of focused in on that one thing that led to me realizing the emotional connection, but there were so many hard times of just frustration and wanting to figure things out on my own, and really realizing, okay, this has to be God's way. It has to be his timing. It has to be his plan, not mine. Like, I swear I wrote that in my journal, like every day for like 7 years. I'm not exaggerating. It was just that long of a process because I had to let go of all these other things until I was ready to really let go of that and just honestly, just like control in general.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a really good segue. So tell me about those 7 years that God brought you through, letting go, surrendering. Like, what did you learn? What did God show you over and over and over again? Well, and what layers did you have to peel? Because I'm sure there's some listeners that I'm sure can relate to some of these layers.
Yeah. Well, to start back, I was a pharmacist, and I always thought I would do pharmacy, and I was super good at multitasking and like doing my job and being efficient and all the things. Well, I figured I would work pharmacy forever, until I retired. But God had other plans, and he brought essential oils into my life, and it provided me a way out and to be able to help people. And it was wonderful. But somewhere along the way, my pride and my humanness took over, and it came about success and money and all these things. And then he brought me to a point there where I realized I'm not happy. This is not right. Like, I would like make my plans and ask God to bless it, basically, which is a lot of what we do, without even knowing that we're doing it. And so that was kind of the pinnacle of like, where do I even go from here? Because I'm just so burnt out. I'm like, I feel lost. I don't even know what to do. I thought I had good intentions, but I just took the wrong path somewhere. And so that was kind of what started the 7-year journey of, just my heart knowing that I wanted to do things the right way. But again, my head couldn't figure out how. So it was just a lot of little ways of letting go. I know there's just so much that happened in that 7-year time span, but I think it was just the fact of I had to be okay even if, like, I had to be okay if it didn't work out, or if this was taken away from me, or all of these things. I feel like that was kind of the theme, because I really like to understand. I really like a formula. I really like a plan. And
you didn't have any of those.
I didn't have any of those. And so it's like you might drop one straw, but you just keep grasping at all these other ones because you just want to feel safe. You want to feel in control. So I think it was just that loss of control that that took a while
Yeah.
because I'm kind of stubborn,
aren't we all?
kind of hard-headed. Yeah,
But he did it gently over that 7
he
years,
did.
right?
He
He
did.
he he gently showed you that you could
Yeah,
trust him and you could let go and you could surrender
right,
over and over with every piece, right?
right,
And that no matter what, the day brought or the month brought or the year brought, that he had you, right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, not only did my physical health, he brought me to a point that he wanted to change that too. And not that other things didn't change in that time frame, but it was like my marriage got better. I was a better parent. I was a better friend. Like all of those things that I was just so wrapped up in me. Like I
sure.
was able to just really let go and I'm a better version of myself. Like because nobody wants to be around somebody that wants to control everything,
Sure. Sure. Right.
just more uptight, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Back then. And again, it's so hard to notice in yourself. Like I look back and think, why didn't I know that? Like, why didn't somebody tell me?
It's hard
Maybe,
to see. It's hard to
yeah,
see from the inside out, right? It's so much easier for people on the outside to see in.
yeah, for sure. But, I just trust that it had to be the way it was. And,
Sure.
And there was some apologies that I had to give out. And there was some really humbling moments that I had to go through because we got to own up to our mistakes. And I think that's really important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to go back to the forgiveness piece for 1 minute because it's really important that really anybody that's listening understands that you tried all the physical stuff for your
I tried
constipation,
everything.
right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is what you do for a living. Like,
Yeah.
all the tricks, you did all the tests. And it wasn't until God showed you something that you were holding on to, for someone really close to you and it was and if I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Kari, but it was a really big moment for you when you realized it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was like a hot mess.
Right. I mean, and that's the surrender though. God showed up and said, this is the piece.
Right.
And I mean, it's big.
Yeah.
So take us, so go ahead.
Well, I was just also going to say, in the trying all the things, I just remember thinking, if I still have to be on all of these like supplements for me to be regular, that's not being healed.
Normal.
It was like, I would
Right.
get off a protocol and it would be like, oh, you need to stay on these 5 things. And one of them being magnesium and the other one being something that stimulates your bowels. And I'm like, does that mean that I'm really healed? Because I don't think so. And so
No.
it was, and I feel like that was God asking me to dig deeper. And even though maybe the next thing didn't really, it led me closer. Maybe it wasn't the fix, but it led me closer to continue to ask, like, why? I think sometimes we stop asking why sometimes.
Sure.
But that was really part of my journey and that led me to what I think is what God was trying to show me all along, that it's that it's not only physical, but it's emotional and spiritual as well. And really mainly spiritual.
Right. And so obviously you're pooping a lot more regular now after addressing the forgiveness, right?
Praise the Lord.
Right. But it doesn't mean it goes away. I mean, we still have struggles.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's also something I had to let go of recently. I mean, you told me, you're like, you can't focus on this. And I'm like, but why? I want to go to the bathroom every day. But God was showing me like, you got to trust me. And it's, it's in my hands now. And not that there aren't some physical things that, might need to be shifted out. There are definitely still some things like that here and there, but I think it is mainly just a trust thing because once you've had this really, this thing that you've dealt with, this kind of underlying issue that's kind of just been your thing, and then it gets better, you're almost like holding on like, oh gosh, is this going to stick? Is this going to keep going? And I almost had that in the back of my mind. And then finally God was like, you got to release control of even that. Like I've got you completely. So it's definitely been a journey, but I feel like I'm, it's just a day by day thing. And that's what I've realized. And that's what I, look back and think I just lived in the future constantly. And that's not where God wants us to live. We have to live each day.
Surrendered.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's an incredible story because I think it really highlights, although it's important to address the physical, I don't want to,
Of
undermine
course.
that, most of the time, the problem is emotional or spiritual. And if we don't address those pieces,
Hmm.
we we can't even begin to address the physical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So I love this story because I think it highlights over and over again, God's really, loves us to the point where we need to hand over everything, literally every single detail. And
Yeah.
when we're holding on and trying to control, um, it shows up physically, emotionally. And sometimes we think
Yeah.
that it's a physical problem and it's really not. And so hopefully if you
But
listen
hold
to
on
the
now.
previous.
I have to tell these people some things that actually I look back and think, wow, this made a really big difference.
Okay.
Obviously, there was the emotional, spiritual of just like letting go. That was huge for sure. But
Right.
then, as I learned more, Jen and I just, I feel like God was calling us to just be in nature more and be outside more. And I just felt called to that. And I was encouraging her to do it too. And so then later on, we realized, oh, wow, this morning light, this being outside can really heal your gut. And it was actually a recent podcast that we did with Kari Bennett. And, and in that podcast, she says, well, it takes about 8 months to heal your gut. Well, if you're really consistent. And I thought, oh my God, I've been doing this for like 8 months. I
There you
mean,
go.
it was just like light bulb moment. It's just so crazy how God leads you to the things you just
That you
feel
need.
like you just want to do this and you don't really know why. But that was really big for me. For sure. And then the other thing is, I definitely have been on so many supplements, like so many supplements over the years. And just I would take them blindly sometimes, or I would get somebody to help me and have a specific protocol that would be sort of like almost, based on test results, let's say. But it also was a big change for us to work together, you to help me with very specific supplements each month that would help support organs that would be stressed. It was just like a
Sure.
different way of looking at things. And so that's been extremely helpful as well.
Sure. Yeah, because the emotional and the physical go together, right? And so if you support the organ physically, it doesn't want to hold on to those negative emotions, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just supporting those organs on a regular basis, which we tested you probably pretty close to every month for a while, right?
Yeah. And sometimes weekly, just depending.
Right, right, right. So that was an important piece, but I just love this story because, especially with my background, it's like sometimes you default to just focusing on the physical. And so
Hmm.
when you hear stories like this, it's like, right, 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 right. There's, you know, two other aspects of our beings that we
Yeah.
need to focus on for healing, and we can't heal if we don't. So
Right.
I love your story, Carrie, because it
Thanks.
just highlights it so well.
Yeah, I
Thank you
hope
for
I
sharing
hope
it
it
with us.
brings hope and just a different a different perspective. And I think God's always calling us to trust Him, to surrender, to almost stop trying to fix it. Like that has been a big theme this week, even and even at the retreat that we just got back from. I just
Sure.
see it now. It's like it's like God brings you to the point where you've turned over most of the things to him, but yet you feel like you're still really trying to trust, even like it's good things that you're trying to do. However, he wants to bring you to a point where you're like, okay, I can't do this on my own. Like that's what we ultimately all have to get to. So,
Yeah, hopefully it's sooner than not.
right. Hopefully it doesn't take you 7 years. There were lots of great moments in those 7 years. It wasn't all
Of
bad
course,
by
of
any
course.
stretch of the imagination, but it just, yeah.
Yeah.
Just super thankful for the opportunity to share it. And I really hope it blesses and encourages somebody that might be feeling really um, frustrated or isolated or alone, or like they're the only ones that are dealing, with
Sure.
said
So,
symptom or, plural. I get it. We've both been there in our health. And we want to help you if that's you, because you're not alone. The enemy wants you to think you are, but you're 100% not. And I think it's important to share with somebody. And so,
yeah, for sure.
and get some
Well,
help if you need it.
yeah, no doubt. Well, we'll be praying for all of us to keep surrendering, all of us to keep letting go, and for all of our trust to keep increasing, because ultimately that's how we heal. Yeah. So until next time, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.